Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to have a go at making a hidden stairway, and in a second I'll bring in a really early prototype that I made that will explain things a little bit better. So, as you can see, there's a throne sitting on top of a little plinth, and we'll be able to slide that throne back to reveal the secret stairs. And, as always, you'll be able to find the PDF file for this one down in the description. So, let's get started. Okay then, the first thing we'll need to do is glue the bottom half of the floor tile to some single corrugated cardboard, and as usual, we'll place a heavy book on top so that it dries nice and flat. We'll also do the same thing with the top half of the floor tile, but as you can see, when it's dry, we'll cut this one to size, including the square hole in the middle. And all we're going to do then is glue one on top of the other, though we will need to make sure that we have the holes of the corrugation positioned above the bottom step like this, if that makes sense. So I'll go ahead and do that now, and I am paying particular attention to the inside and outside edges, but when it's done, we'll put something heavy on top again, just to make sure that it dries nice and flat. Right then, here it is now that it has dried, and all I'm doing here is trimming the bottom part to size. So, yeah. There you go. Then it's just a simple matter of gluing on some walls in whatever position you think works best. It's the same kind of thing that you've seen me do lots of times before, so I'm not entirely sure you need to see me do this yet again, but for my own tile I'm going to have it so that there's only one exit, and that's going to be on the same side as the top of the stairs. But if you're new to the channel, then you can find the wall pattern in several of the other PDFs, including the one from the very first episode, but do be warned, that episode hasn't aged very well. Anyway, here I am sticking on the last few pieces, and when we're done, this is the kind of thing that we should be left with. So, that's the first part of this little project done. Okay, now to make the little plinth, we're going to take each of the square patterns and glue those to some 3mm thick foam core. And when that's dry, we'll cut it to size. Then we'll need to cut out a strip of the plain stone texture that's also 3mm wide, and we're going to wrap that around the edge of the foam core, which is exactly what you can see me doing here. So, there you go, something like this. And we will of course need to do that for all three pieces. Then, as you've probably guessed, we'll just need to glue these one on top of the other, into a kind of stepped pyramid shape, which should result in the kind of thing that you can see here. Right then, for the throne itself, we're going to glue these three pieces to the same foam core, but this time we're also going to glue some of the plain stone texture to the back, so that when we cut the pieces out, we end up with something that's textured on both sides, like you can see here. Then, just like we did with the plinth, we'll cut out a strip of the stone texture that's big enough to wrap around the entire piece, and using the trusty glue stick, we can then glue that into place. So, there you go, something like that. And when that's done, we can do the same thing with the side pieces as well. Okay, next we'll need to glue this texture to some thin cardboard, but before we cut it to size, we will need to score it along this line here, so that when we do cut it to size, it makes it easier to bend into this kind of shape. And now we're finally ready for the assembly. So what I like to do is apply some glue to the straight side of the backrest, and then stick that in the middle of the longer part of one of the sides. I'm not sure if that made much sense, but this kind of thing. Actually, here's a little picture to show it a bit better. Okay, next we'll take the seat, and for this we're going to need to make sure that the side with the line is facing towards the front. And to glue it into place, I like to run the glue stick along the edges to get a kind of temporary bond first, just while I'm getting it in the right position, which again is hard to see with my fingers in the way, so here's another picture. Anyway, once we're happy with the position, we can add a spot of superglue or hot glue to the inside corners to fix it firmly into place. And then we'll just need to repeat the process for the other side, which is exactly what you can see me doing here. And with any luck, that should result in a nice little stone throne. So if I bring the plinth back in, all we're going to do now is hot glue the throne on top. So there you go. Something like that, which I think looks rather nice. Now, this next part is optional, but if we want to make the throne slide back and forth, we'll need to cut out a little strip from the scrap piece of cardboard that came from the middle of the tile. The size itself isn't all that important, but mine's around 10mm wide, and I've made sure that it's a bit shorter than the hole itself. But as you just saw, we do need to have the corrugation holes showing along the long edge, because we are going to be sticking a couple of toothpicks through those holes to make a kind of piston. So here I am doing just that. And to fix them into place, I'm just going to push them out farther than they need to go, apply some super glue to the exposed part of the toothpick, and then slide it back into place. And we will need to do that for both of them, so that's what I'm doing here, which should result in this kind of thing. Next, when the glue is set, we can cut away the tiny points, and if I then bring the tile back in, we can push the other ends of the toothpicks into the corrugation holes of the top half of the floor tile, and as you can see, that should give us a nice sliding mechanism. Okay then, all we'll need to do now is pull the toothpicks out as far as they'll go, apply some glue to the top of the little cardboard strip, and then position the throne on top, so that the plinth covers all of the small bricks that surround the hole. And as you can see, here I am carefully pulling the piece out again, just to make sure that the cardboard is firmly attached, and I'll then put it back into place and leave it to dry. So here's the tile and the sliding piece now that they have dried, and if I just slot that back into place again, there you go, here's the finished piece. So maybe the players have to solve a riddle, or flip a switch, and that's when the secret stairs are revealed. And as you just saw, considering what it's been made from, it actually works surprisingly well. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Obviously, you don't have to use the throne if you don't want to. You could just as easily glue a pillar or a statue on top instead, and that should work just fine. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'd be interested to know if you plan on making one of these, and if you do, how you might put it to use. But as I say, that's it for this one, so thanks for sticking around until the end of the video, and I'll see you next time.